My daughter was born premature, and here's the story of me delivering her 5 weeks early. I had a very textbook pregnancy. I had very little morning sickness. I was never considered high risk. No signs or symptoms that I was going to deliver early, except one night I had a really, really vivid dream that I was going to deliver early, which was very weird. It was almost like premonition. It was a Sunday going into a Monday. I had so much anxiety that night. I really couldn't sleep, and I went into the next day, a work day, and I was just exhausted. For whatever reason in the back of my mind, I was like, I should get a lot of these like to-do list things done before I leave for my maternity leave. So I got a shit ton done at work that day. And ironically, my coworkers also threw me a surprise baby shower at work that day. So it was just kind of funny how that worked out. That night after work, my husband and I, we were getting a lot of stuff done. Whole side story, but we had to get our floors replaced. That week, we knew that the flooring was going to get replaced. So that Monday night, we were like, we have to move as much of the furniture out of the way. So that night, I remember we literally set a timer on our phone for an hour, and we're gonna move as much of the stuff as we can in that period of time. So I wasn't lifting anything like super heavy, but I probably was overexerting myself. So I'll always wonder if my floors caused me to deliver early, and that just sounds so crazy, but it's the only thing that I can think of. We move all the furniture for an hour, and then we probably relax for half an hour, watch TV, and then we go to bed around 10 o'clock. I wake up in the middle of the night and I feel the urge to pee, which is not uncommon at that stage of my pregnancy. But what was weird is I had wet myself, which I had not done before. I was like, that's strange. So I go to the bathroom, I change my underwear, I come back to bed, and I have this just like sinking feeling that I'm like, that might not have been urine. And so I really don't fall asleep because, again, I'm just having anxiety. And 20 minutes go by maybe, and I feel a flush of water down there again. And I'm like, crap. So I get up, I wake my husband up, he springs out of bed, and we call our doctor. I wasn't feeling any contractions at that point in time, but they said with how early it is, how much fluid had come, they said, absolutely get yourself to the hospital. Mind you, we didn't have anything packed, and we were panicking. So this is midnight-ish, and we are running around the house collecting things for our hospital bag. But mind you, also that same night before, we had moved so much stuff out of the nursery in preparation for the floors to get replaced. So there was stuff that should have been in the nursery, that was in our basement, that was in our bedroom, like all over the house. It ended up taking us 2 hours to get out of the house. And it was also a snowstorm that night, so the roads weren't great. By that point in time, my contractions were coming on so strong. We ended up looking later. We had one of those apps that tracked my contractions, and they were coming on like every 2 minutes. And I didn't realize how quickly they were, but they were coming on so fast and so strong. So we get to the hospital around 4:30, and I'm just leaking fluid everywhere. They roll me up on a wheelchair and they get me to like a triage room. And before I could even sit on the bed, the nurse assesses how much fluid was on the wheelchair and said, get back on that wheelchair, we're going to the delivery room. And then it's just a scramble from there. I remember getting like hooked up. The nurses were kind of all scattered. They were trying to find an anesthesiologist. They were trying to get a doctor because my doctor hadn't arrived yet. I remember they checked my cervix right away and I was already 6 centimeters dilated. They told me basically with how fast things were going that I wasn't probably gonna have time for an epidural, which was definitely part of my birth plan, so I was freaking out. I asked if I could have nitrous oxide help with the pain, and they said that I didn't have time for that. Thank goodness there was one final option for pain management, and that was a one-time spinal injection. I forget exactly what it's called, but it's essentially the same relief as an epidural, but the problem is it will run out. But in my case, it was perfectly fine. So the anesthesiologist comes in. I remember making him pause because I could feel a contraction coming on. And so I was like, can you not put that giant needle in my spine? Because I don't know that I can control myself. He does the spinal injection, and like that, it was instant relief. After I got the injection, they checked me and they said, you're basically at 10, you're ready to push. And mind you, this was an hour after I had arrived at the hospital. I can't remember exactly how many times I pushed, but it was about 15 minutes. And then she was here. And I just remember thinking on the drive there, I was so scared that with how early she was, that she was going to have lung problems. So pretty quickly after she came out of my birth canal, she started yelling. And that was like the biggest relief as a mom who was in like, honestly, pure shock. I'm gonna like cry. I was like in pure shock that I had delivered a baby. I was not expecting for her to come this early, but also to come this fast. I like to joke to my coworkers that Monday night at 10 p.m. I went to bed pregnant and expecting to go to work the next day, and between that period of time and when my alarm was supposed to go off at 6 a.m., not only was I no longer pregnant, but I had already given birth to my baby. There was NICU staff there when she arrived, and she passed all of her tests, the bilirubin, the car seat test, everything. So with her passing all of her tests, we were discharged after 48 hours and came home with a 5-pound baby, which is so scary. Our nursery is still kind of a chaotic mess, and the first night was tough. Of course, you're up every 3 hours, but she also wasn't feeding great. We had a number of doctor's appointments set up every day after that for like the next 4 days, just given how early she was. We go to the doctor's appointment the next morning, and she had lost too much weight and her temperatures were scary low. So that was the hardest day of our lives because we were told that we had to be sent back to the NICU and our baby was not doing good. And so the first time I ever rode in an ambulance was with my daughter that day when she was 2 years old, transporting us from the doctor's appointment back to the hospital. We ended up being in the NICU for about 6 days, mainly to get her feeding maturity up and help her maintain her weight and her body temperature. She was otherwise a pretty healthy NICU baby. So we're very thankful for our time there, and we learned so much, and she is ever since then been super healthy and thriving. But it was a really scary experience, and obviously something that we didn't expect to be in, having a preemie and having a NICU baby. But yeah, that is my story. That is our story, and we're just very thankful that she is now a healthy, thriving baby.